So, welcome to the general meeting of the Toyota Land Cruiser Club. I'm Bob Fife, TLCC President. On my left is Colin Richards, our Vice President, Alan Kidd, our Club Secretary, and to my right, Mark Willock, our Club Treasurer. No applause needed. Are there any visitors or new members present tonight? And if so, could they please be upstanding? Congratulations and thanks for joining the club. That's better. On behalf of the committee and all members, I welcome you. And if you have any questions, please ask somebody in shirts like this or any of the other young, older members around the place. They all know the drill. So please make yourself at home. Present as per the attendance book at the rear of the hall. Apologies, Chris and Mari Taylor, Sue and Ken Duffy, David and Heidi Rowley, Sally and Noel Ribbingale, John Kenny and Sue Chisholm. Are there any other apologies anybody wanted to make for anybody that I've missed? No. The minutes from the previous meeting have been posted at the back of the room. I propose that the minutes of the previous general meeting held on Monday, 10 October 2022 be taken as read and confirmed. Do we have a mover, please? Yep. And a seconder? Oh, John. Yep. Announcements from the President. Best wishes for a speedy recovery from COVID to Sally and Noel Ribbingale. Noel was at one stage hospitalised, but he's now back at home because they thought it's too dangerous to be in hospital. I think probably put him down the back in the basement somewhere. I've been asked by Chris Taylor, which I say every month, to thank all members who continue to contribute material for the club magazine. Of course, many thanks go to Chris himself for managing to put together the magazine whilst he is travelling around now in South Australia instead of Western Australia. But the club magazine standard has not dropped with him being away. Good on you, Chris. Thanks to Norma Ferguson for filling in tonight as Sergeant at Arms, and to Brian Chisholm for helping out picking things up, prizes, etc. So we'll give them a clap. A reminder for any members who may be wanting to go to the children's Christmas party at Coolangatta, please book tonight as bookings close tomorrow, so that Debbie Oliver, who has kindly taken on the event, is able to organise gifts for the children and organise food, etc. Debbie is here tonight, so you have any questions, just have a chat with her. Debbie, there she's waving her hand, so that's who to talk to. At the risk of being a jinx, I'm pleased that it seems as though the expected flooding to the outer western areas of Sydney seems to have abated, and we have some of those people here tonight, which is good. Let us hope that the rain stays away from the club properties, so that particularly Willow Glen can dry out enough for repairs to bog areas to be recommenced. Problem being down there that areas that we can go for driver training are less than normal, but we still make up for it and put in some other hard things for the new members to do.
I looked at the weather a couple of minutes ago and it's thunderstorming.
Apparently that happened yesterday too, Rob. That we don't need. But when I looked up the weather station down there, they don't seem to count thunderstorms, even if they drop 50 mils in an hour. It's to be hoped that members going down to Coolangatta for events, working bees, or just to camp for a few days are making themselves aware of the current roadworks that may impact their trip down to Wombi Coves Road. There have been links put up on Facebook, and I'm sure they're on the website too, so that you can check for yourself and find out on any given day what the delays are likely to be. So I'll hand over to Vice President Colin Richards for a report.
Thanks, Bob. I'll keep it short tonight, but I was just having a chat with Max Turner before the meeting, and he asked the question about the saluting their service grant that we got given from the Department of Veterans Affairs. And one of the questions was, how many members did we have with a link to the Defence Force? With a direct link, I had 268 respondents, and with actual direct service, I had 80. So that's just a few numbers there for you. My next plan is to get myself down to Coolangatta now that the rivers are open, I'm not flooded in, I haven't got COVID, and I'd like to finalise our plans, which I'm going to present to committee and then to the members, and hopefully I can then get the plaques made. I've received permission from the Army, Navy and Air Force to use their crests, but unfortunately the Australian Defence Force crest, which is a combination of all three emblems, they've knocked us back. So anyway, like I said, we've got the three services on board, so hopefully in the next, by December meeting, I hope to have something to put up on the board here for you to have a look at. And also tonight we've got a guest speaker, Tony Crook from GME, has kindly has come in. He's going to give us a presentation, and he's also got some display items up the back there if you want to go and have a look at and perhaps play with. I'm sure he'd be more than willing to demonstrate the items for us. So I really appreciate that. Thanks, Tony, for coming along. And that's it. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Colin. Right, Treasurer's report. Mark.
Thank you, Bob. Evening, everyone. October is the end of the club's financial year and also the beginning of the renewal period. So in October, the renewals opened mid-October, and we banked $53,800 worth of renewal and new member fees in October. We also got some magazine advertising. We got a refund from the tax man of some GST, and we got some interest of just over $700 on our term deposit. We also got $1,200 worth of government flood grants for the damage to Coolangatta, so that'll pay for some road base and Gordon's time. So we had incoming cash of $63,835. We didn't spend much in October. It's not a magazine month, so we hired the hall. We did some bits and pieces for membership, paid all the stamps and things like that. And so we only spent $6,300. So as at the end of October, we have $405,136 in the bank, which is only about $7,000 more than we had this time last year. So that sort of rule of thumb means that we spent most of what we got in for membership fees last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have a mover for the acceptance of the Treasurer's report? Andrew Boyd and Tony. Yeah, well, Tony, we take that as that's very much a, do you think Mark's done well, do you?
You want the job back, Tony?
Okay, promotions. Oh, no, sorry, not promotions yet. Education, which would normally be John Kenny, but Gary Cooper would like to have a little say about the chainsaw course on the weekend.
Is he on? Okay, I'll just put some eyes on. Okay, so the chainsaw course was run the weekend just past. We had 15 participants, 3 ladies and 12 gentlemen. And as is the usual case, early arrivals on the Friday, we go to the Loaded Dog and support the local community. So we were all, or probably 8 or 10 of us went, and David Lamb, one of the trainers, he won the meat raffle. So that put a big smile on David's face straight away. That was good. So Saturday the course started, 9 o'clock, a little bit of a late start compared to, say, driver training. Anyway, start off, people that turned up, they had a variety of saws, small battery, medium battery, large petrol chainsaws. And you'd be surprised, the battery saws actually do quite a good job. But you get to a point, they pull the trigger and nothing happens. And the charging is back at the shed, so they're out of action for a while. So they're probably all right for cutting a little bit of wood, but my preference is smelly old fuel. I love it. So anyway, we started off. I don't know if you know where all the tables are that David and Wayne, who were Wayne was the other trainer. They're just up from the shed. So we were up there and they were doing saw safety, starting of machines, and just general different sort of cuts. So they started off with down cuts on some timber that David had prepared, just sections of timber attached to framework. Down cuts, up cuts, just to make sure people had the feel for their saws, because you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know if you've got someone who's a complete novice or someone who's got a little bit of experience. So they did all that. They got to a point where they were happy with the ability of the group as it stood. So what we did then was, you probably, for those that have been down there, there's a very large tree just up from the shed. It's still alive. It's probably about 3 foot thick at the base. It was leaning over the top track. Now, as it stood, it might have stayed there for a while, but if it was going to fall, it would block that track and it would cause us a lot of problem. So I did ask Wayne to take it down. He took it down, and then all the participants in the group moved in and they were practicing all the different type of cuts. They were practicing step cuts, bore cuts or plunge cuts, and they basically cleared all that tree, and we actually cut it up, put it in, or parts of it, into different trailers. We managed to use the new block splitter we've got down at Willaglen. We sectioned one trailer load, but it's all still got to dry, so it's not for use at present, but that was the best way to use that timber. That was sort of about the most of what we did in Saturday. Then Saturday afternoon, David organises a theory type course, so he goes through chainsaws as far as what can make them fail or cut incorrectly, how to look at the bar and things like that on your saw, how to look at the carburetor, fuel filters and things like this. So that's fairly interesting in itself. And Wayne, of course, was sitting in the background adding his point of view as an arborist, whereas Dave is a small engine expert. So that was quite interesting as well. It was good. So at that point then, that was the end of Saturday and the end of the cutting. Sunday, they started off back at those same benches. They did chainsaw sharpening and a little bit of chainsaw maintenance, cleaning and things like that, and just generally looking over. And that was quite good and accepted by everyone. What we did then was, you probably don't remember, but up at opposing wheels, when you did your driver training down there, there's 2 huge dead trees hanging over the top of the track into opposing wheels. They were probably 3 foot thick and probably 60, 70 feet high. David took those down, and then, Wayne took those down, and then David and Wayne actually sectioned them all up, and we got everyone to move them off the track, and so that part of the track's clear. So then what we did, all the participants were then reminded of convoy procedure and the use of channel 10 on your radio, because we were going to go out the back and we didn't want to lose anybody, as we sometimes do. So we then went around to the, if you remember, the day car park for the challenge. There was 5 trees there, dead, probably some of them only about 30 feet high, some might have been a bit higher, 40, 50 feet. Anyway, they took those down, and then 5 participants took those down, but then they sectioned all of those trees into lengths. Now, with the block splitter, you need to have somewhere about 500 mil or 50 centimetres. So they sectioned them all in those lengths, and they're out there ready for timber for the shed. And I'm sure Ian Moggs is going to use some of that next weekend for his towing course if he needs a fire. So that was good. Yeah, it was a good social group. Everybody mucked in, and yeah, I think everybody enjoyed themselves. Greg, did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, we recommend it down at that. I mean, I was a novice when it comes to chainsaws, but the information that they share with you gives you not just overconfidence, but gives you, good understanding of the safety of it. Fantastic course.
Okay, all right, well, that's great. So now at the end of the course, Dave Lamb said to me, he said, I've forgotten how much I enjoyed doing this course and teaching the people in the club. So he said, look, I think we'll run 2 next year. So he was really happy with what he did, and so we look forward to more courses. That depends on time and his availability. He's keen to do a couple next year as well. The weather was great down there, which isn't always the case for the chainsaw course. We've been down there for really wet, cold ones. But I did warn David too. I said, if you run another course, you may not win the meat raffle next time. Someone else might. So anyway, yeah. And look, a little bit of special mention. A couple of people helped out. Bob Anderson and Shirley Trelaw. Bob did a lot of the things behind the scenes to help with the course. He serviced the block splitter after it was being used and did some cleaning around the shed, and Shirley cleaned other things that don't normally get cleaned by people, and they both assisted on the tracks with the cutting up of the timber or clearing up of the timber and that, so that went really good. So look, also Elkie actually, we've only been home a couple of hours. We only left Willow Glen early today, and Elk just did a quick PowerPoint presentation in which hopefully John can run for us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Gary. Very comprehensive.
So that's Dave just explaining the down or drop down cuts and up cuts. That location is just above the shed or just up from the shed. A fallen tree, just looking at how to attack it. This is the first time they've seen a tree they're going to attack. That's the leaning tree just up from the shed. You can see the wedge and then the cutting in for the scarf and that. That was a heavy tree. That was 3 or 4 tonne, or maybe more. It actually moved on Dave, and it actually caught his saw. Yeah, okay. That's a plunge cut. That's Anthony's wife, Christine. Big smile. That's the block splitter. You need to have a reasonable amount of care when you're using it.
Instructions now attached to the machine.
Yeah, okay, so this is doing some maintenance and things on those tables that are up from the shed. This is one of the big dead trees up above the opposing wheels. It was very dangerous. It had no centre in it. When Wayne tried to cut it with a scarf, it just collapsed and went. That's one of Elkie's triumphs. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Gary. Just as a bit of a finish off on education, basic driver training was run very successfully in October with a near full booking of new members, and everybody, well, except for one guy we won't go into, went away with a big smile. So that's always the sign of a successful course. On Saturday just gone, we had sand driving up at up past Newcastle at Stockton Beach. That went very well, and we had another, on that course we had another new 300. That's 2 I've seen in the club so far, so they are starting to happen. So anybody who's waiting for years, it will happen, I believe. And the weather up there was fantastic, and we got the tides just right. There's the biggest high tide I've ever seen there, which had gone down from when we went along the beach, but you can still see the water right up into the dunes, still marking everything, so very, very high tide. Okay, that's it for education. Promotions, Andrew.
Thank you, Bob. Just a quick note, I've probably received in the past 2 weeks 6 calls from 6 members or emails to say, how do I get to the club property? Does anyone here know where to find a map to get to Willow Glen or to Coolandelly? There's 3 places. Where's one place? The website? The member zone? Another place? In the Facebook, in the file section. And the third place, what do you get when you come to module 1 when you first, your handbook? Correct. So I think it's quite amusing that people don't know sometimes, but anyway. Yeah, because a lot of people don't know I get all the club phone calls because my mobile number sits on the front page of the website and Rob gets the odd call as well. So I don't actually tell them, I don't actually send them a copy because I don't have the time to physically look up the membership database and say, is this person a member? I let them do the homework. So, and just echo Gary's comments regarding the chainsaw course. I also get the feedback from that, which I send to David and he puts that up on the website. And this is just one of the comments, and it's a fantastic weekend with a TLCC chainsaw course. Expert guidance from Dave and Wayne. Both did an outstanding job. Fair to say we all learned a lot, ranging from operating chainsaws, servicing, and most importantly, doing it all safely. So very nice to get those. TLCC News, as Bob alluded to, Chris has been doing a mighty job of that while touring Australia. Everyone should have received the September-October edition, whether it's in the hard copy or the electronic version. Getting a good take-up. Probably 3 or 4 members now have elected, just between meetings, to not accept the hard copy. That magazine printing cost, due to paper costs now, just to print the magazine is probably somewhere in the order of $6,500 plus the desktoping, plus the postage. So it is probably one of the biggest expenses the club has. I've also got a process at the moment where we're getting some additional quotes just to see that the print cost is justified. And Chris is putting together the November-December edition of the TLCC News, which you'll get sometime in December, and always looking for new content and or new advertisers. And that's about it from me. So don't have a lot to report. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Just following on a little bit from what Andrew said about the calls he gets about, I had one couple wanting to know how to get to Coolandelly. They'd already talked to Andrew, but they like to talk to everybody, I think. But anyhow, how do we get there? And so I said, well, look in the club handbook. He said, that doesn't seem very good. I said, well, the times it tells you from when it starts to when you get there, as soon as that time's up, you will be at the gate to Coolandelly. I then saw him at the sand driving course on the weekend. He said, you were right. Thank you. But they also said, we've tried so many times to get onto the sand driving course. It seems very popular. I said, well, it goes up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Everybody knows that. And they said, well, we set our alarm for 8 o'clock and didn't get anywhere near it. And I said, well, you need to set your alarm for 7:45 and be booking at 8 o'clock, because by 3 minutes past 8, it's all done. Same with advanced driver training. And I think Gary's courses, auto electrical, are the same thing. So some of the courses, if you know they're popular and you want to get on them, be on your computer, have the form filled in, and when it ticks, the clock ticks over 8, hit the button. And I think then you've got a chance. So back on now to Social Director's report. We don't have a Social Director, but Debbie Oliver would like to have a chat about the children's Christmas party at Coolandelly.
Hi everybody. I didn't realise I'd be up on the stage, but anyway. So I'm Debbie. My husband down there is Mark. He's also helping coordinate the Christmas party. So it's on the 26th of November, which is 2.5 weeks away, on the Saturday. Planning is well underway now. We've had a number of families RSVP, which is fantastic, and I've also had a large number of people volunteer to help me out, both with the pre-planning and helping out with the activities on the day. So that's fantastic. Some of those people I don't know, I only have their names, so if you're here tonight and you know that you've volunteered to help, come and say hello to me after the meeting. That would be great. Just for people that don't know about the Christmas party, just a bit about what goes on. So it's on the Saturday, primarily. Many families arrive on the Friday, set up camp. Some arrive early on the Saturday morning. So the day progresses with the morning spent sort of fairly low-key, but families get involved with setting up the decorations in the hall, in the shed, thank you. And the kids can decorate the Christmas tree. After lunch, early after lunch, the main activities will get underway. There'll be craft activities for the kids, games. Santa will be coming at about 3:30 in the afternoon with gifts for any club members' children who are 12 years and under. They receive a gift from Santa. After Santa is there, families can set up their table. We'll ask families to bring their tables and chairs, set up their tables, decorate them if they'd like to, and then sit around and have some nibblies and some social time before dinner at about 6 o'clock. After dinner, there'll be a movie for the kids and then supper later on. Sunday becomes a relaxed day for people just to enjoy the property. Swim in the river if you choose, and just enjoy the property. So members can invite friends to come along. They have to make a separate application on the website, and children of friends can come along and receive a gift from Santa that we ask families of those children to provide. So as we've said, RSVPs close tomorrow, and that gives Santa time to prepare the gifts for the children. I'm going to say that there's a little bit of leeway in that now, so that if you know of people that want to come to Christmas and they feel like they've missed their RSVP date, still get on the website and put in a booking, but I'm asking people to then contact, my email address is there, to email me so that we can discuss what would happen about Santa's gifts. Okay, I think that's all. Does anybody have any questions? No.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Land Managers Report, Brian.
Evening, everyone. Where am I up to? Notes. At both properties, our working bees seem to focus a lot on reacting to weather events, which seems to be ongoing, which unfortunately impacts on other activities, which are a bit behind in some maintenance items, but I'm sure we'll catch up those eventually. Down at Coolandilly, yes, please remember the road restrictions. There is a hard closure at the moment between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. where you will not get through. And outside of those hours, on weekdays, it's under traffic control. So just plan your trips down there. The October working bee down there was very industrious. Got quite a lot done with limited numbers. We had 2 new couples come down for the first time, which made a big difference to what we could get done. They jumped in most enthusiastically, which was very welcome. And the hut makeover continues, and that's probably not too far from being totally completed. And we have another working bee down there this weekend.
and we'll wait and see what the last month's weather has left us to sort out down there. Willow Glen, it's still very wet, as people have mentioned, around the property, so if you're down there driving, just be careful because you will sink down to the axles quicker than you can blink. And the next working bee down there is on the 26th, 27th of November, and we'd love to see people down there to help out with that. And I think that's about it, except Colin, if you want to come down to Coolandilly this weekend, and you'd be most welcome to show your monument and we can get you working on something as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Membership report, Robin.
I'm a short thing. Good evening, everybody. So we have 7 new memberships since our last meeting. We have close to 900 memberships, okay, in the club. I'm still receiving new applications. Thank you for everybody who has renewed. If you know of anybody who hasn't renewed, can you just remind them that now is the time to renew? I'm getting lots of renewals coming through, thank you very much. But I know there's lots more out there as well. We have 255 members choosing to receive the magazine by email only. So we are also climbing in that area as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Just adding a little bit for Robin, I believe that the count after today, we've had about 450 renewals, so that's about half, which for this time of the year is pretty good. People are enthusiastically paying their money. Four-wheel drive activities report, Ian.
G'day. So, no trips were run in the last month, but a lot of that was due to weather conditions and things being closed and people being a bit not wanting to organise things because they get cancelled. However, there's a group heading to the Vic High Country for a week in early December. That just went full though. And a 3-month trip in Queensland, NT and WA mid next year. But once again, it's already full. With the improved weather, and I'm crossing my fingers about the time frame, now's a great time to get out there for a day, a weekend, a week or a month. I'd like to thank those who have been running trips for members to enjoy and encourage everyone to run one. Did you realise that if every member ran just 1 trip a year, and I don't, like Robin and I, 1 member, we'd have 18 trips running per week. That's a lot of members.
Thank you, Ian. General business from members, and I can see Elkie skulking about over there. That's what they said in 4 weddings and a funeral.
Am I right here? You know I don't like this thing. Always looking for, well, good evening everybody. Always looking for new things for the clothing shop, although we clearly can't expand to the point where we're a boutique. But I found this cap, which when I was, now you may or may not know that Dave Rowley does a lot of work behind the scenes, and he always puts these things up so that they can be purchased online via our website. So I was describing the cap to him and I said, it's really sexy. So I don't want to discourage anyone if they're a little bit timid, but I reckon it's pretty cool. 1 size fits all. So that sells for 20. Another new product. Rob Alexander may not remember or even be aware that he inspired me to look for a broad brim cap. Suitable for summer, and it's not quite as sexy as the other one. Comes in 4 sizes, and being microfiber will travel well. You chuck it in the back of the truck, sit on it, throw it in the water, cool. And last but not least, now I've already got stock of those for the cap and the broad brim. These are coming because the embroiderer had a little bit of whoopsie and put the wrong size logo on them. We have 2 lots of beanies in black and red. They're knitted. These are polar fleece. And when the embroiderer gets it right, we'll have some of these as well. These sell for 15, 22 and 20. Thank you.
Thank you, Elkie. John Gregg. Please be careful, our insurance is up and been paid yet.
Good evening all. I don't know how many of you might be aware, I certainly wasn't, but next year will be, if he was still alive, Len Biddell's 100th birthday. Yeah, so there is something being organised, and I believe it's an exhibition of never before seen drawings that Len did over the years and people have got. Apparently there's been a call go out asking people if they've got one to please, not donate it, but lend it to the exhibition. Now, just exactly where this exhibition might be, I don't know yet, but we are heading up to Queensland over Christmas, and I'm going to see a couple of people, and I'm sure I'll be able to find out a lot more about it. So it'll either be probably up in northern New South Wales, a little bit inland, where Connie Sue Biddell and her husband Mick Hutton now have a property, or it could be up in Queensland itself. But just where is a little bit, I don't know at the moment, and the person I've been talking to about this, they also don't know. But I'm sure we'll find out, and probably the first meeting back next year I'll be able to tell you, or we'll get it put up on the Facebook page, because it's actually the 21st of April next year, which is the date, so it's not very far into the new year. But anyway, as more information comes to hand, we'll try and get it to you as soon as we can. Okay?
Thank you, John. We have any other members with general business? I normally cut it off and then somebody says, whoa, you didn't get me, so I just want to make sure. Okay, general business from committee. Colin, Alan, Mark, Brian, Andrew. Yeah, I think that'd be good if anybody can. Just get in touch with Andrew, and we know Vonnie and Dujan are normally very good at that sort of thing, distributing, so let's encourage everybody. Ian, Robin, that is it for that. So we switch to guest speaker, Tony Cook from GME.
John, can we get the presentation up on the screen, please, mate? There we go. All right, so my name is Tony Crook. I'm the Group Marketing Manager at GME. I've been at the business for about... Oh, you can't hear me? That's the first time I've ever been asked to speak louder, you know. I'm normally getting told to shut up, to be honest, but... So I've been at GME for about 7 years now. My background is consumer electronics. I've worked in consumer electronics for about 18 years across a number of different companies. And I'm also a pretty avid four-wheel driver myself. So that up there is my 80 series. Unfortunately, it's not here at the moment. I've just got back from 2 weeks in Tassie driving some fairly tough tracks down there. And it's in the shop getting fixed before I go to Fraser at the end of the month. So there is a Nissan Patrol in the car park. It does have GME on it, and I'm sorry, I know it's pretty irreverent to bring that here, but hopefully you'll not kick me out. John, if you can go forward 2 slides, please. That's me. So GME, we're a locally owned business, so we're still 100% family owned. The business was founded in 1959 by Ted Dunn. Ted actually passed away about 22 years ago. His wife and his children are still the majority owners of the business. We're headquartered in Winston Hills, so we've got a purpose-built facility down in Winston Hills. It's about 17,000 square metres, and we manufacture as much of the product that we possibly can in that facility. At this point in time, about 90% of our total turnover per annum is Australian manufactured product that comes out of that local facility. The family that owns the business is 100% committed to Australian manufacturing, and quite simply they've said, if we can't build products here, we don't want to do it anymore. So that's a big part of why I work for the business. It's something I'm really passionate about, as are many of our engineers and lots of the people within the business. We've had a good couple of years, to be honest. COVID's been good for business. Lots of people buying new four-wheel drives and campers and boats and all sorts of things. So we've increased our workforce by about 15%. We're sitting at about 240 staff at the moment. So given the size in terms of the turnover, we're actually quite a small business in terms of headcount, but we are growing. We've got some new areas that we're diversifying into, such as defence, and the plan is to continue to grow the business. What else have I got up there? We're the only Australian manufacturer of UHF CB radios and emergency beacons. So that's something that we hang our hats on. A lot of our competitors in the space, particularly with UHF radios, they're large multinational companies. And look, they make some great products. Where we have a significant advantage though is that we're local, we're close to the market, and we're also part of the market. So a lot of the people that work with me at GME are avid four-wheel drivers and fishermen and have their own boats. So it gives us a much closer link to the market and really helps us to develop products that are hopefully going to make all of you a lot happier once you purchase them. I've spoken about all of that. If you can go to the next slide for me, please, John. Sorry, I'm not used to presenting from behind me. So we have about 1,000 products in the range. That can be split up into 4 separate categories though. So we've got what we call our land products, which are UHF CB radios and antennas predominantly. We've got our marine side of the business. The vast majority of the sales there are emergency beacons, so EPIRBs for boats and PLBs for land usage. And we also do marine stereos, VHF radios, and a wide range of antennas and AIS systems. We've got the Kingrey part of our business, which is TV signal distribution systems. That's probably the least sexy part of our business, but it's something that's really important, and many of you have probably got Kingrey products in your house and you don't even know that they're there. So a lot of the Kingrey products are supplied to Foxtel and form parts of Foxtel installations, particularly in apartment buildings where we run large distribution systems in the back end that, again, you'll never see, but really important. That's actually where the business started back in 1959, was with repairing TV tuners. And for a variety of reasons, we've ended up where we are today. And then the last component, which is one of our most important in terms of our future growth, is commercial radio. So very similar to UHF and VHF radios in terms of the way they look and operate, but there's some key differences. So think, when you talk commercial radio, it's licensed frequencies and really for critical communication. So police, fire, ambulance, large mines, forestry, that sort of stuff. That is an area that we're growing and focusing on significantly in terms of innovation, which is great for the land side of the business and the consumer products, because a lot of the new technology we develop for commercial radio then trickles down into the consumer products and makes ultimately a much better product for the end user. Next slide, please, John. All right, so I'm sure a lot of you know all of this, but some of the questions that we get very frequently, I think we get a bit carried away with all the technology and a lot of the innovation and the sort of fancy features, but a lot of people ask us questions really about, which radio should I buy? They look on our website, there's many different models available, and it's really sometimes quite hard to determine which one is going to suit your particular requirements. So we can split it into a couple of really easy to understand areas. So the first one is mobiles, or what a lot of you would know as fixed mount radios. So quite simply, permanent installation in the vehicle. Hopefully, most of you have got one of these in there already. And there's some significant advantages versus a handheld radio when it comes to a mobile. The most obvious one is you've got permanent power from your vehicle's 12-volt system, but most importantly is having an externally mounted antenna. We've got a range of different antennas, which we'll talk about shortly, but being able to have a large antenna on the outside of the vehicle means you're going to get much greater transmission distance, and you're also going to receive over a much greater distance than you would with a portable radio. And of course, you don't have batteries that you need to charge on the radios, and if you're like me, you'll constantly lose the chargers for your handhelds. There are 8 models in the range. Now, there are different variants. We do them in packs with antennas, but really, there's 8 models. Almost all of them are made in our facility in Winston Hills. A couple of the entry-level models are made in our factory in Shenzhen in China, but the vast majority and the ones that we sell the most of are all of our Australian-made products. And really, they're all quite similar in terms of their base functionality. They're all 5 watt. That's the maximum transmission power you're allowed on UHF-CB in Australia. We'd love to be able to sell 25 watt radios like they do in the States, but unfortunately we can't. The main difference between these 8 models in the fixed mount or mobile range is the form factor or the shape. And I already had a conversation with one of the members earlier tonight about trying to mount a radio in a new Prado, and of course there's very little space in a lot of these modern vehicles. The days of having a big DIN mount radio that you could chuck in the DIN slot on the dash are pretty much gone for most new vehicles. So a lot of the radios that we're selling now, and we're seeing a big shift, is to what we would call a hideaway unit, or one that's got a smart microphone. So all of the controls are on the handpiece, the main unit's hidden away somewhere, out of the way, and it's really a lot easier to use in terms of having all the functionality at your fingertips. So that's something that we're seeing change. And if we can go to the next slide, please, John. Then we've got these radios. So I don't know what's happened to my picture there, that's a bit funky, it doesn't look like that normally. These are what we call our XRS Connect range of radios. So again, these are mobiles, but these are our most feature-rich radios and our latest and greatest in terms of features and also performance. So quite simply, if you get a little bit overwhelmed by all of the fancy features and technology and Bluetooth and apps, just know that these radios have a couple of really key differences versus not only the other radios within our range, but everything on the market. And we say that they're louder, brighter and better. They're louder because they've got a 2 watt speaker in the front of the microphone. A lot of the microphones will have the speaker in the rear, which is fantastic until you pick it up and hold it in your hand, and then the sound is muffled. Seems pretty obvious to put the speaker in the front, but took us a little while. 2 watt speaker means that you get great volume out of it, even in a loud vehicle. Most of the radios on the market are running a 1/2 watt or 500 milliwatt speaker in the front. It is very noticeable with these radios how much louder they are on receive. They're brighter because they've got an OLED screen. So OLED technology, hopefully you'd be familiar with. All the TV manufacturers have been talking about it for many years. But the advantage of having an OLED screen in a CB radio is that they're anti-glare coated. So even with sunlight, or if you're wearing polarized sunglasses, you can still read the screen, and they're super bright. They'll also last a lot longer than a traditional LED in this kind of scenario. And they're better because they're just better. User upgradable firmware. So this is something that a lot of people hear about and go, oh, that all sounds a little bit too confusing, but it's really a simple process. What user upgradable firmware means is that our engineers can continue to develop new features, fix bugs, and improve the performance of the radios, and push that software out, and anyone who owns one of these radios can simply download the new software and write it to their radio. So it means that when you buy one of these products, that isn't the whole story. We will continue to give you more features and new benefits to owning one of these products throughout the life of the product. And of course, they're Australian made. So Winston Hills, just up the road. John, if we can go to the next slide, please. I also do have one of those XRS radios over there. If any of you own one or want to know more about them, feel free to come and speak to me and we can run through it. Now, antennas is where it starts to get a little bit overwhelming, because if you go to the antenna section on our website, we've got about 40 different models and then probably the same again in terms of pack variants. It can be very confusing, but really antennas are quite simple in their operation. And the main thing that you need to ascertain is, first and foremost, the sort of terrain that you're going to be driving in your 4-wheel drive. If you're towing a caravan and you're spending 95% of your time on bitumen, you don't need the biggest, chunkiest broomstick antenna with a huge spring on it on the front of your car. Something small and lightweight might be a better option and will give you just as good RF performance as the big chunky ones. But if you're doing some more hardcore off-roading, or if you're driving a lot of corrugations, then absolutely you should consider using one of the antennas that's got a bigger spring base and has a fiberglass construction. It will handle those vibrations and last a hell of a lot longer. I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but I did, sorry. Gain. Gain is something that is very simple to understand and is very confusing for pretty much everyone. Our antennas range from 2.1 to 8.1 dBi gain. The vast majority are in the 6.6 range, and that's what most people will run, and it's sort of the best all-rounder. Quite simply, the gain is how much of the RF power being input into the antenna will then be transmitted, and whether or not it will be magnified, I guess you could say. Now, that's all well and good, and you might think, well, you want the most gain possible because I want to talk to people the furthest away. If we can go to the next slide, please, John. This is probably the easiest way that we can try to explain it. Now, if anyone here has an RF background or is a ham radio operator, you'll probably come and debate this with me later, and that's fine. In simplistic terms, a 2.1 dBi antenna will give you quite a round radiation pattern. So think of like a ball. It won't transmit as far as a higher gain antenna. But a higher gain antenna with a flatter radiation pattern won't overcome obstacles or obstructions as well as a lower gain antenna will. So, if you're on the Nullarbor Plain and you want to talk to a truckie that's 30 kilometres away, an 8.1 dBi antenna might be your best option. But if you're in the high country on the trip that I just heard is coming up, which I'm very jealous of, a 2.1 dB antenna, shorter, will actually give you better performance in that hilly terrain. Now the good news is we've got interchangeable antennas. So you can have one spring base on your car, and we have a multitude of different whip options that can then easily be changed between them. So you should all buy more than one antenna. You should all buy more than one GME antenna, I should be clear, and then change those antennas depending on the type of terrain that you're driving in. We can go to the next one, please, John. And then we get into portables. So we call them portables, many people call them handheld radios. As I said, they need a battery, they need the charger, which you need to not lose, and they're limited by the size of the antenna. So they're not going to transmit as far as a fixed mount radio, but there are some obvious advantages to them. They're portable, and particularly if you're four-wheel driving and you need to spot somebody, or you're at camp and you've got kids running off, it's great to be able to throw a handheld at them and stay in contact with them over that range. Again, these are limited to 5 watt transmission power. We can't output any more power in these radios by law. Within the handheld range though, we've got 1 watt, 2 watt and 5 watt radios. A lot of people think that they need the maximum transmission distance at all times and they want a 5 watt radio, but of course that comes with a cost and also comes with size constraints. So in order to output 5 watts, we need a bigger battery, it's an overall bigger radio. In the majority of four-wheel driving situations, when you're in a convoy and you can see everybody, a 1 watt radio will do more than what you need. And of course, they're very small, compact and lightweight. And again, if you're giving them to the kids, they're fantastic to be able to throw a little 1 watter at them and stay in touch with them wherever they go. We've got a range, obviously, as I said, of sizes. We also do twin packs, quad packs. That's all, I think. And there's also a number of other different features in the handheld. So as you step up the range, there's things like IP ratings. So the top end models are waterproof and dustproof. They're also military standard in our high-end model, which is the one I've got over on the table over there. So it means, well, actually you said there were a few military members within the group, which is good, but really what that's about is shock, dust and ingress. So being able to really abuse those radios, if you drop them, they're not going to break. If we go to the next slide, John. All right, so this is something I just wanted to touch on very quickly. I know I've been talking a lot, but I'll get through it. Cellular antennas. So on my Land Cruiser, I have 2 large black antennas on the front, and I'm frequently asked if I run two UHF radios. I do, but that's not what the second antenna is for. The second antenna is a cellular antenna, and it's connected to a Cellfi Go portable booster. This is really good if you're in fringe areas where you've got limited mobile phone reception. It will not create a mobile signal where there is not one, but if you have 1 bar of reception and you're struggling to get a message or a call out, these devices will boost the signal. And again, the higher the quality of antenna on the exterior of the vehicle, the better the performance will be. So we've got a couple of different models in the range. We've got a 1200mm and a 580mm version. They do have different gains within them, but they will cover multiple bands. So in Australia, cellular networks use 700, 850, 900 and 1800 to 2100, which is all very technical ways of saying basically 3G and 4G. For the vast majority of users in this country who are on a Telstra or an Optus plan, you buy the boosted suit, whichever carrier you're with, and these devices are fantastic if you're spending a lot of time out in those regional and remote areas. If you can go to the next one for me, John, I think we're getting there. Does everybody know what a PLB is? Good, good. So this is our one. It's called the MT610G. We only released this at the end of last year. This is the best insurance and probably the cheapest insurance that you can have if you're spending time in remote areas. So, of course, mobile phones are fantastic, and when we survey the general populace, obviously not people as educated as yourselves, they say, oh, well, if something goes wrong, I'll just use my mobile phone. 14% of Australia's landmass is covered by mobile phones at the moment. So yes, 95% of our population is covered, and Telstra love telling us that frequently, but only 14% or 1 million square kilometres out of the entire landmass is covered. UHF-CBs are your next best if you've got, I guess a low-level emergency, or if you break down and you've got plenty of water and food and you just need someone to come and help you. But if it all goes really bad and you need help, a personal locator beacon is the cheapest insurance you can have. These devices cost under $400. They've got a 7-year battery life on them. This device will be picked up anywhere in the world that you can make contact with a satellite. There's over 150 dedicated search and rescue satellites in the world. Generally speaking, if you set this device off anywhere in Australia, AMSA in Canberra will have that notification within 15 minutes, and they'll have a location down to 150 metres of where you are. I've got one of these in the glove box of my car, and we spent 2 weeks out in an NT crossing the Simpson Desert last year, and I would say from a personal point of view, it's very reassuring to know that you have that device in your glove box if and when something goes wrong. So that's enough of me rabbiting on now. John, if you go to the next slide, I will have put a very large questions there. Now, of course, you can come and talk to me over there afterwards, that's fine. But sometimes it's good to ask a question in a forum like this, because invariably, if you've got a question, someone else will be asking the same thing. Yes? Is the battery replaceable at PLB? It certainly is, but only by us. So at the end of the 7-year period, you can send the beacon back to us and we offer a refurbishment program. But in order for us to certify the device, it has to be changed by us. On this one, I believe the replacement cost on a battery is around $199. So given the lifespan of these units, it's really a toss-up of whether you're really emotionally attached to the unit or whether you want to upgrade to the latest model, and the technology moves fairly quickly in terms of the satellites. So a lot of the time people will buy a new device rather than refurbishing an old one. Anyone else got a question?
Could you please ask the question again? This is for the member that is going to watch the video later on.
I was just asking, when you activate a PLB, what steps happen after that?
Okay, so when you activate a PLB, what happens? Which is a great question. So as soon as you set the device off, it will make contact with the satellite system, and it's called the COSPAS SARSAT system. It's international government subsidised system, and in each country they have what's called LUTs, or local user terminals, which is effectively a ground station, so a big satellite dish on the ground. The signal will go to the satellites in the sky. It will then be transmitted down to the LUT, and from there it will go to the Mission Control Centre, which in our case is in Canberra, and that's run by the Australian Government, or Australian Maritime Safety. They will then pass the signal on to the JRCC, which is called the Joint Rescue Coordination Centre, also in Canberra. It looks like a NASA control room. I've been down there, it's really cool. There's a whole bunch of search and rescue trained personnel there. From there, they will identify the individual serial number of your beacon so they know who you are, and that's why it's very important to register these devices with AMSA. You can register them online. They will then call the emergency contacts listed on that particular beacon and say, is John out in the middle of the Simpson Desert? Yes, he is. And they will then send search and rescue assets to that location. So in the case of a PLB in Australia, the rescue response is generally coordinated by the police service. So the JRCC in Canberra will use whatever assets are available. AMSA do have some of their own planes and helicopters available, and they can pretty much task anyone. So it might be the police, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, SES, the military, basically anyone who's close enough to be able to provide an emergency response. My pleasure. Okay, that's a great question. So the XRS Connect radios that are firmware upgradable, how do you do that? This is a cop-out, but if you go to YouTube and search for GME AU, we've got a whole series of tutorial videos. You will have to listen to me talk, I'm sorry, but we step through each of the stages that you need to go through. So quite simply though, you download the app to your smartphone, it's called XRS Connect, it's very easy to remember. Pair the radio to your mobile phone using Bluetooth, and then the app will automatically prompt you to update to the latest firmware. But all jokes aside, the YouTube channel is a really good resource. We're constantly uploading tutorial videos on there, so if any of you have got any questions about any products that you do own, feel free to jump on there and have a look. Yes?
How do you know when you're out in the bush whether the unit will work?
The PLB? That's a great question. So, yes, there is. So on this device, there's two buttons. There's a red button and a green button. The red button is when everything goes bad. The green button is a test button. So you can perform self-test procedures on the beacon before you go away. Now, we generally suggest no more than once a month. But of course, if you're not going travelling, you wouldn't test the beacon, generally speaking. If you're about to go on an extended journey, you can perform the self-test procedure. That will test all the circuitry within the beacon, and it will give you audible confirmation and a flashing light to tell you that it's all good. And then there's a next level up, a GPS self-test, where the beacon actually makes contact with the satellite system. It does use more battery life, but again, it will give you that confirmation that the beacon is performing as expected. Not at this stage. Very recently though, the Australian government has commissioned what's called Return Link service. Now this particular beacon doesn't offer that service at this point in time, but future generations of beacons will provide a return confirmation to say, yes, the signal has been received. Yes?
Are there insurance options to cover the costs of any such search and rescue operation?
That is a very good question, and I don't know. That's right. So, in terms of insurance options, I'm not sure. If a beacon is set off in an emergency situation, the cost of the rescue is covered by the Australian government. So, some of you may have heard about the gentleman and his family who got their truck stuck in the middle of the Simpson Desert and set off a PLB. They had a plane come out and drop them a sat phone and some supplies, and then they said they were all good and they'd waited out, and then I think they realised that they were going to be waiting quite some time, and they elected to be picked up. All of that was covered by the Australian government. What was not covered was the $6,500 fee for the guys at Mount Dare to bring their Unimog out into the middle of the Simpson Desert and haul the truck out of the bog hole.
Richard at the back. I've heard that some of these PLBs, if you use it on a genuine emergency, you will get it replaced by AMSA at their cost if it's used for an emergency. Is that correct?
Not by AMSA, but by us.
Right.
So if you set off a GME, EPIRB or a PLB in a genuine emergency and you call us, we will replace the beacon free of charge. The only caveat is I will want you to tell me your story so that I can put it on the news section of our website.
That is sensational, and just as a little add-on, Recce and I are part of Bush Search and Rescue, and these items are incredibly good. We strongly recommend, and in the module 3 of driver training, I spent a little bit of time talking about the PLBs, and Jeremy is one of them that we definitely recommend.
Very good, thank you. And just on that point, it's something that I think a lot of us, take for granted that, we'll be fine and we go out there and usually it's all good. We get the rescue reports from AMSA every month, and on average, one a day. One beacon a day is set off in Australia, and 90% of those are real emergencies. So things do go wrong out there, so it's really great insurance to have in the car.
Is there any method in the machine facility where you need water, ambulance, police, rescue, bolt, not bolt?
There is not. So this is where I was saying before, you're the best person in the situation to determine what level of assistance you require. So, look, if you do a tyre and you don't have a spare and you're on the side of a road where you know that there's a bit of traffic coming through, generally speaking, you sit tight if you've got enough water and you've got enough food. If you've just been bitten by a brown snake, press the button. There is no way to send a message. The message that these devices send is, I need help and I need help as quickly as possible. The terminology used by the rescue services is a situation of grave or imminent danger. So if a member of your party is likely to perish if you don't receive emergency assistance, that's when you press the button. All of the search and rescue assets that will be tasked to an emergency beacon activation will be cross-trained, they'll be first aid trained, they'll have snake bite kits, they'll have water, they'll have all of those. So they're not going to send out just a local copper on a horse and hope for the best. They're really, nothing wrong with cops on horses, don't get me wrong, I don't want to upset anyone. But realistically speaking, they're going to account for pretty much all of the major, likelihoods in terms of an emergency.
Tony, can I just cut in for one moment? Are you available to answer questions at the end of the meeting?
Of course I am.
I think we might sort of cut it a bit short. If anybody has questions, Tony will take them. But just at this stage, we might say that the club does have 2 EPIRBs, as we also have sat phones that club members can use or rent to use for any trips. So we're not trying to cut you out, Tony.
No, you probably
we do have a couple.
I'll stay here all night and chat to you guys,
So, okay, is that okay? Well, any more questions? Tony will take those. You're welcome to stop for supper with us as well.
Too easy. Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, for a change of pace, we want Sergeant at Arms, and that is tonight, Norma Ferguson.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see, Sally's not well, and I'm her supersized replacement. Now, I have instructions from Sally what I have to do tonight. She might not be here, but she's quite a powerful person, as you know. And the first thing that I'm told to do is say happy birthday to the following members: Bob Fife, Richard Farr, Jenny Twine, Anthony Ross, Peter Williams, Jeff Clark and Ken Duffy. Now, there could be more, but that's the list I've got. And the only way I can really say happy birthday is maybe we'll sing happy birthday to that little lot, whether they're here or not. They will love that, I know. Let's all join together and let's give it a go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bob, Richard, Jenny, Anthony, Peter, Jeff and Ken. Happy birthday to them. Yes. Right. And we won't sing the other song. You're safe.
Norma, I thought this was only for old people.
You're not, I didn't say that.
You're telling me that I'm getting old?
No, I didn't. I say that you're another year into your maturity. Yes.
Very
that's
good.
All. very special thanks to Sue Chisholm for organising the 6 beautiful non-sweet, non-fattening parcels at the front, which will be, you'll find out if you've won. Now, we don't have our classy barrel. This will do. And maybe you can prove, Bob, that you still got it if you'd like to draw the tickets out at a great height so you can't see what you're drawing. You have to stretch. Now, having just had a birthday, go for it. And thank you, Scott. Scott tonight is our scribe and photographer. And if you win one of these wonderful creations, please stay out the front to get your photo taken.
First ticket, blue U12.
Blue U12.
With hearts down the right-hand side of the ticket.
Our first lucky winner, yes. So if you'd like to choose one of those 6 parcels and stand over there, and Scott, give your name to Scott, and don't go away. Second one. Beautifully folded.
Green U51.
Well done. Yes? Give it to Scott. Thank you. We believe you. Stretch.
Oh. U03.
Three to go. Give it to Scott over there for us. Thank you.
U green 24. Green.
It's a problem if you're colourblind, isn't it?
Blue U17.
Yes, well done, Katie.
Oh, look, we're getting some very worthful people.
Yes, we are. Yes. Some hardcore members there, yes. And one lucky last.
Green U75.
As I said, lots of high-profile members. And we can congratulate Stuart on just having retired. There's your first retirement gift, maybe.
You know how exciting this is for the old people who remember Ramsgate. Okay?
What do you mean, old people?
Old people, I'm old now.
No, you're mature.
I actually won a prize at Ramsgate that we've been to other places. In fact, I won a plant that Bonnie had, and it lasted 3 weeks. And since then, I haven't won another bloody prize.
Congratulations, and thanks everyone for buying a ticket, and thank you for Bob for drawing it, and I hope it didn't tire you too much.
No, I've still got a bit of energy left, Norma. Okay, if there be nothing else, I just want to say that the next general meeting will be held on the 5th of December here at the Liberty Hill Church at Chullora. and it will be our annual presentation night. So a good roll-up like we've had tonight, or even better, would be very good. So with no further ado, I declare the meeting closed, and thank you very much.